O.Winston Link was a highly successful New York City photographer in the 1950s. After traveling to Stanton, Virginia for an assignment for an ad agency, he had some spare time at the end of a long day, and he decided to drive to nearby Waynesboro, where he knew the tracks of America's last steam-powered railroad passed through. Link had a soft spot for steam engines ever since he was a little boy.
Lionel train sets begin as low as $19.95.
He knew the Norfolk and Western Railroad used some of the largest steam locomotives ever built. He knew the railroad was the last one to hold on to these steam engines. But what he found in Waynesboro astonished him in the darkness of January 20th, 1955. This was a beehive of railroad activity. The Norfolk and Western had hundreds of dedicated employees maintaining these mammoth machines that sometimes weighed just under 1 million pounds. Link watched and took notice of the Norfolk and Western passenger trains, a service filled with pride. Stately trains that featured sleeping car service, dining cars, in addition to coaches. These trains performed a U.S. mail carrying service that was second to none. Link shook his head and was amazed. This had to be documented, he told himself, before it all disappeared and the diesels would come. The next day, Link was back at the grind, shooting a series of photos to promote the sale of air conditioners. But his mind was filled with what he saw the night before. That evening, January 21st, 1955, he returned to Waynesboro with his camera, and with many flashbulbs and huge pans, he took the shot that he submitted to the Norfolk and Western of Train 2, pulled by a classy streamlined bullet nose Class K locomotive. Winston quickly fired off a letter, asking the railroad for permission to take night photos of its steam trains. He was asking for assistance and help from train crews, and to include people in just about every shot, creating a slice of life along the tracks. He wanted to do this in the time left before the
N&W goes to diesel. Very truly yours, O.Winston Link.
Soon, the Roanoke-based management of the Norfolk and Western Railway had made a decision on Link's request, and this one went from the mailroom all the way to the top, and none other than company president R.H. Smith. From the boss came Link's answer he had waited for, in a letter from Ben Delaney of the Norfolk and Western Public Relations Department. It contained the words that Link so desperately wanted to hear. "Your photo of Train 2 at Waynesboro is excellent," Delaney wrote. However, the photo showed excessive steam coming from the engine's pop valve. Too much fuel added to the fire was a waste. That aside, Mr. Delaney said the railroad was fully cooperating with Link's request. The N&W had said yes. Now Link's project had a clear track.
And they gave me the whole railroad. They gave me 2,500 miles of track and 450 steam engines and all the help I needed.
It wasn't exciting enough that Link could embark on his planned photo expedition all on his own time. The N&W Railroad had opened its front door and took interest in Link's project. As Link took days perhaps to set up his camera and flash equipment for one shot, he quickly learned about the great people who worked for the railroad. Up on the second floor of the Hagerstown Tower is operator Miller Ruth, proudly showing off the hand-thrown switch levers with which he made his living. Luray, Virginia, as home to Luray Caverns, is also where Link found Archie Stover. A small elevated shanty was Archie's perch, as his job was to control the flashers and gates at this busy railroad crossing. Imagine the many miles this man had under his belt. Engineer A.B. Buddy Reynolds retired in 1959 after a spotless 53-year career. Not only did Buddy leave in '59, his classy J-Class steam engine was phased out in that year as well. Over in Bluefield, West Virginia, about 102 miles west of Roanoke, is engine supplyman J.O. Hayden. Before the Civil Rights Movement, never thought he'd ever become a machinist when Link took this photo. Pride in his craft is very apparent as engineer J.R. Harrell pauses at the Schaefer's Crossing Roundhouse in Roanoke before taking one of these locomotives and train to Bluefield. Most likely, Mr. Harrell didn't dress up to have his picture taken. He came to work looking this great every day. Out on the scenic and slow-paced line to Green Cove is conductor Ralph White. Catching up on his paperwork, along with his division timetable and waybills, is a box of safety pops, which he'll hand out to the ladies on his train. Ticket clerk A.T. Moody is busy at work in Bristol Union Station, a passenger station that the N&W and Southern Railway both shared. Mr. Ben Delaney, who answered Mr. Link's request to take night photos of the last days of steam railroading along the Norfolk and Western, stands on the front steps of the Presbyterian Church in 7 Mile Ford, along with his sister, Jane White, on December 29, 1957. Just a few days later, on the evening of December 31st, the last steam train to Bristol made its nightly journey. Mr. and Mrs. Ben Franklin Pope watched the event from their home in Max Meadows. Ben Delaney was on board Train 17 that night, along with O.Winston Link, capturing a not-to-be-repeated way of life. They say time flies when you're having fun. And so the 5 years that Link spent along the railroad trying to capture on film a vanishing piece of America. This project would have lasted longer, but the N&W was now in transition to dieselize its locomotive fleet. Ben Delaney and Link became great friends. As Ben kept up on where the coal-burning giants were being removed from service, Link responded and put his mind, camera, and flash bulbs to work, and eventually making sound recordings. And so in May of 1960, the last mainline railroad to use steam power brought it all to an end. It's 1997. O.Winston Link is appearing as guest speaker at a Christmas banquet put on by the National Railway Historical Society in Roanoke, Virginia. Tonight's party is held at the stately Hotel Roanoke. This particular NRHS chapter was once a key component in the Norfolk Southern steam program. NS once operated 2 Norfolk and Western steam locomotives, Class A number 1218 and Class J number 611. Both engines making appearances in Mr. Link's project 40 years ago. And so the Roanoke chapter and Mr. Link are true friends. And tonight, Winston will read a letter that he wrote many years ago. To the left is Joan Thomas, Ben Delaney's stepdaughter. Joan was 16 when Mr. Link and her stepdad worked together. The letter with deep affection is called Hello, Roanoke. It's a letter of thanks Link wrote in 1960, expressing his heartfelt gratitude towards several people that he'll mention by name, who made that photo project in 1955 a reality.
And it starts, Hello, Roanoke. From the lonely but picturesque spots along the N&W, I have called the dispatches so many times with this signal. Hello, Roanoke. Where is 42, 51, 26, 3, 2nd, 95? With the reply, we could relax for a few hours and scurry along a mile of circuits of complex night photo equipment to ready the cameras for action. Either 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a half a minute away. Sometimes we lost, next time we won. And that is why I'm here. Farewell to all my friends along the N&W. I am finished because you have no more live steam locomotives. A special goodbye and warmest thanks to Troy Humphreys, my first N&W employee I encountered at Waynesboro, who typified all the N&W I was to enjoy in the 5 years ahead. For Machinist Carroll, now deceased, God bless you for your help at Bristol Roundhouse. Thank you, Captain White and Joe McNew, for my first ride in the cab of a locomotive number 382 at Green Cove. For the switch key to dispatcher's telephone, I am forever indebted to F.S. Baird, Vice President Traffic, N&W, retired 1958. Thanks to Esther Fringer at Lithia for letting me use your bathroom to develop films made near your home. And those great meals for a total stranger. To Engineman Bristol Line for fine smoke on December 31st at Max Meadows, our last and final opportunity to catch steam. To Conductor on 18 at 3 a.m. December 26th, Max Meadows, for you know what. I don't like to mention what he did. To Engineer Finney, chicken dinner at your wife's log cabin at the Gooseneck Dam. Boy, was I grateful for this coincidence. To all employees of N&W, Walter Jackson, Assistant Trainmaster, Norfolk Division. Did you get the rose on the table in the dining car, Mr. Link? Thank you for explaining the meaning of Set-Off Man and Phoebe Turn and the house car run. Thanks for preserving my left leg on the Y6. To Mr. Hobart Scott, Superintendent Transportation, an experience never surpassed, my own caboose behind a 1200 on 84. I wish you knew the pleasure and convenience. Thank you. To Mr. Nicewarren at Bluefield for taking the sealed mail car off of 15 and putting it on the end. And Hager Tower, have you got 115 volts yet? Thanks to Beverly at the Jaeger Drive-In for your cheerful, endless chatter. No problem too difficult with you around. No thanks to the water supply at Panther, nor that watermelon either. Thanks to Jack Starsh at Shaper's Crossing for keeping locomotives off 61 rails, thus saving me digging in subway for my wires at the roundhouse. For the Shenandoah Valley dispatchers, a special thanks. So many nights it seemed endless when we were in trouble with equipment failure, wind or rain, always a pleasant voice and full cooperation. My favorite branch, next to Abingdon. To the Radford Division dispatcher, when we were up against a deadline of steam, you guys delivered 2 sections in steam, not so close together that we didn't get a chance to reload bulbs. To Ben Delaney for answering the leading question, hey Ben, where is, correctly and exactly, it seemed 1,000,000 times. Thanks to Barry Good, age 8, for outthinking us at Luray. Run the wire under the bridge, Mr. Link, how obvious. To Mrs. Friend at Max Meadows, the fruitcake during Christmas week brightened the holiday season for both of us. How is Jerry doing with his new camera? To Walter Finney's bull, for the straw we spread on the ground at Gooseneck to get some sleep when waiting for number 88. We missed that shot. Hate to tell you this, we missed a shot. We missed that shot because the wind shifted and wet the cameras set up at the falls. We got the picture eventually. To George Tom for enduring the heat and cold without complaint. He was the assistant. To Thomas Haskell Garver for the needle to indulge me at the expense of making stereo recordings. To Tom Dobbins for his Ramrod demands for color movies. He was a personal friend. To Mrs. Gray, hello Mrs. Gray, near Blue Ridge, your expensive electricity forced me into getting an AC converter, opening up a field of recording I would not have otherwise tackled. You pulled the switch in the middle of a sequence when my hour ran out. Though you held the cards, I feel a moral victory because we had fuses with us that Sunday when you weren't home. And that's about everything in this little notebook is word for word.